Julius Caesar was a Roman politician, military commander, and one of the most famous figures in ancient history. Caesar is known for his military campaigns in Gaul, modern-day France, which he conquered and brought under Roman control. As a politician, Caesar introduced several reforms that strengthened the power of the Roman state and improved the lives of its citizens. He also expanded the Senate and reformed the calendar. In 49 BC, Caesar famously crossed the Rubicon River with his army, defying the Roman Senate's orders not to enter Italy with an army. This act effectively marked the start of a civil war that Caesar ultimately won, cementing his power in Rome. Sadly, Caesar is also remembered for his assassination on March 15, 44 BC. He was stabbed to death by a group of senators who feared his growing power and popularity. Caesar's life and legacy have had a lasting impact on Western civilization, inspiring countless works of literature, art, and political philosophy. He is also credited with spreading the Latin language and Roman culture throughout the Western world. But historians say little about Julius Caesar as a husband and a man, although he was married 3 times and once engaged, once divorced, and once a widower. Movies and literature have popularized the fact of his affair with Cleopatra, who was a prominent political figure of the time, while other women have retreated into the shadow of Caesar's greatness. Cossutia was a Roman woman who became engaged to Julius Caesar prior to his reaching adulthood. Their engagement was arranged by families for political or social reasons, rather than being a result of a romantic connection between Caesar and Cossutia. Cossutia belonged to a very wealthy equestrian family from Pisa. The equites constituted the second of the property-based classes of ancient Rome, ranking below the senatorial class. Both families issued coins with her image and were inscribed with Ux or Caesarus. In 84 BC, after his father's death, Caesar ended the engagement because he believed that Cossutia's family was not wealthy enough to match his own status and ambitions. According to the Roman historian Suetonius, Caesar ended the engagement because he felt that Cossutia did not meet his standards for beauty. This episode is recounted in Suetonius, The Lives of the 12 Caesars, specifically in the section on Caesar's life. The relevant passage reads, "At the same time he betrothed himself to Cossutia, a wealthy and noble girl, but soon after broke off the engagement, saying that he had pledged himself too hastily and without due consideration. Some, however, say that he put her away because she did not please him, and took the following method of letting her know it. On the day before the nuptia, he gave a banquet, and after it was over dismissed all the guests except Cossutia, and then sent her away with these words, 'I send you back your portion, Cossutia.'" Cornelia Cinna was the daughter of Lucius Cornelius Cinna, a prominent politician in Rome who opposed Sulla, the dictator who ruled Rome in the mid-1st century BCE. Julius Caesar was a young man at the time and was sympathetic to Cinna's anti-Sullan cause. According to some accounts, Caesar was even a protege of Cinna, who helped him get his start in politics. Cornelia and Julius met at social gatherings through their families' political connections. They fell in love and were married in the early 80s BCE, when Caesar was in his mid-20s. Their wedding took place in Rome, where both Cornelia and Julius were born and raised. Sulla, the dictator of Rome, viewed Julius Caesar as a potential threat to his power, and he saw Caesar's marriage to Cornelia Cinna as a connection to the powerful popularized faction, which opposed Sulla. In 82 BCE, Sulla demanded that Caesar divorce Cornelia and marry another woman in order to sever his ties with the populares. At Sulla's command, many had been forced to divorce their wives and marry members of his family. The Roman senator Marcus Piso, who had married Cinna's widow, was encouraged to divorce his wife, and he followed Sulla's orders. General Pompey was also pushed to divorce his wife in favor of Sulla's stepdaughter. However, neither the deprivation of his priesthood, Cornelia's dowry, and his own inheritance, nor the threat of violence, would induce Caesar to forsake his wife. He was proscribed and escaped Roman disguise, evading capture by regularly changing his place of concealment, and on at least one occasion by bribing the commander of a patrol sent to search for Sulla's enemies. Caesar's defiance of Sulla was a bold move that demonstrated his determination and political courage. It also put his life in danger, as Sulla was known for his ruthless persecution of his enemies. However, Caesar was eventually able to return to Rome and establish himself as a powerful political figure, thanks in part to his family connections and his own abilities as an orator and strategist. According to historical accounts, the marriage of Cornelia Cinna and Julius Caesar was a happy one. They were said to have been deeply devoted to each other, and their love was considered a model of a successful Roman marriage. Overall, while we may not know many specific details about their relationship, it seems clear that Cornelia and Julius shared a strong bond and a deep love for each other. However, their marriage was tragically cut short by Cornelia's death in childbirth, which left Julius Caesar a widower at a young age. Caesar was said to have been deeply affected by her death, and he gave her an elaborate funeral as a sign of his love and respect for her. Large funerals for younger women were uncommon, but when Caesar gave Cornelia an ornate funeral, it was widely accepted as a show of his deep love for his wife and his grief over her death. Some historians have suggested that Cornelia's death may have contributed to Caesar's own views on marriage and family, which were quite progressive for his time. For example, Caesar was known to have advocated for laws that would make divorce easier, and he was said to have had a relatively liberal attitude towards sexual relationships outside of marriage. Cornelia Cinna and Julius Caesar had a daughter together named Julia Caesarus, who was born around 76 BCE. Julia was Caesar's only legitimate child, and he was said to have been very devoted to her. Julia became the fourth wife of Pompey the Great and was renowned for her beauty and virtue. Unfortunately, Julia's life was marked by tragedy as well. The marriage was unhappy, and Julia died in childbirth in 54 BCE. Caesar was devastated by her death and reportedly mourned her deeply. Pompeia was the second wife of Julius Caesar, and their marriage was the shortest. She was born in the late 1st century BC to a politically influential family, and was known for her beauty and grace. Pompeia's marriage to Caesar was arranged in 67 BC, when she was still a teenager. At first, their marriage was happy, and Pompeia accompanied her husband on military campaigns. In 64 BC, Caesar became intertwined in an affair with the little sister of his greatest political rival, and while Pompeia had limited power to do anything, most believe this is where their marriage began to sour. However, the breaking point came during the festivals in honor of Bona Dea, a Roman goddess, which were being held at Caesar's home. The festival was a celebration comprised of secret and sacred rituals only for women. It was generally presided over by the Vestal Virgins and the host's wife, who in this case was Pompeia. The celebrations came to a halt when it was discovered that Pompey's alleged secret lover and quaestor-elect, Publius Clodius Pulcher, had snuck in dressed as a woman to meet with his mistress. He copied Caesar's mother. The scandal caused a huge uproar in Rome, and Caesar was furious with Pompeia, believing that she must have been involved in the incident. Clodius was arrested and charged with profanation of the feast. Caesar gave no evidence against Clodius at his trial, and he was acquitted. Caesar divorced Pompeia soon after, stating that "my wife ought not even to be under suspicion." This gave rise to a proverb: Caesar's wife must be above suspicion, meaning that if one is romantically involved with a famous or prominent figure, one must avoid attracting negative attention or scrutiny. Pompeia maintained her innocence and was never charged with any wrongdoing. After her divorce, Pompeia retired from public life and lived quietly in Rome. She was known for her piety and devotion to the gods, and was respected by many for her dignified conduct in the face of adversity. She died in the early 1st century BC, but her memory lived on as a symbol of the ideal Roman matron. Caesar took a third wife while he was a consul in 59 BC. She was a teenager named Calpurnia. Her father, Lucius Calpurnius Piso Cassianus, was a consul in 58 BC. All accounts describe her as faithful, good-natured, and humble. Despite Caesar's infidelity during their marriage, she stayed loyal to him. As a member of the wealthy upper class, Calpurnia lived a life of relative luxury and privilege. She would have had access to education, entertainment, and leisure activities, and would have been expected to participate in social and religious events. As a couple, Calpurnia and Caesar would have been expected to maintain a public image of respectability and decorum. They would have attended public events together and entertained guests in their home, and would have been expected to conduct themselves in a manner befitting their status. She was with him during some of the most significant events of his life, including his rise to power and his assassination. By all accounts, Calpurnia was a faithful and virtuous wife, and seems to have tolerated Caesar's affairs. He was rumored to have seduced the wives of a number of prominent men, including both of his allies in the First Triumvirate, and he had for some time been intimate with Servilia, a relationship that was an open secret at Rome. It was rumored that Caesar was the father of Servilia's son, Marcus Junius Brutus, although this is improbable on chronological grounds, and that Servilia attempted to interest Caesar in her daughter, Junia Tertia, who, according to other rumors, was also Caesar's daughter. Caesar also carried on affairs with the Mauritanian queen Juno, and most famously with Cleopatra, the queen of Egypt, who claimed that he was the father of her son, Ptolemy XV, better known as Caesarion. According to the Roman historians, Caesar's murder was foretold by a number of ill omens, as well as the Etruscan Horuspex Spirina. The night before his assassination, Calpurnia dreamed that Caesar had been wounded and lay dying in her arms. In the morning, she begged him not to meet the Senate as he had planned, and moved by her distress and entreaties, he resolved not to go. But Decimus Junius Brutus, one of Caesar's closest friends, whom he had recently appointed praetor Peregrinus, and secretly one of the conspirators against him, came to the house and persuaded Caesar to ignore the omens and go to the Senate. Following her husband's assassination, there is a story of her rushing out of her house in grief, accompanied by several women and slaves. Calpurnia delivered all of Caesar's personal papers, including his will and notes, along with his most precious possessions, to the consul Mark Antony, one of Caesar's most trusted allies, who had not been involved in the conspiracy. After Caesar's death, Calpurnia retired from public life and lived in seclusion.